When it comes to reviewing a mod, I generally look at a few things. Whether a mod is fresh and new, whether it's got new ratings, or whether it's just a fantastic mod that needs to be reviewed. In today's review, I've got a different circumstance. This mod was released 8 days ago at the time of recording and already has 184 ratings, giving it a 5-star review. Not only that, it already has a plethora of Steam Community Awards. So, what kind of mod is this? Introducing the Spacer Shields mod, a mod that literally couldn't be more Rimworld if it tried. And with these ratings and reviews and how new of a mod it is, I had to give it a go. Let's get into things and start with the content. So let's start by looking at the content of this mod and our first impressions of the Steam Workshop page. What is there and what do we see? Now, I've reviewed a lot of mods. I know what a good mod page looks like, I know what a bad one looks like. So, what does this mod give us? The thumbnail is nice and clean, I really like it, shows what's in the mod, and then we have another image of the context of this mod and how we can use it in game. Then looking at the rest of the mod page, there's not very much here. We have the 2 descriptions of the 2 items that are added by this mod, and that is it. There's no images, there's no compatibility, there's no mod recommendations. This is very bare basics. I would definitely like to see an improvement of this Steam Workshop page, but obviously this mod's working without that stuff anyway. Let's get into things and look at this in game. So in game, we are given access to 2 new shields. These new shields work using the vanilla expanded framework stuff, so you can use the shields offhand and still be able to use a weapon at the exact same time. So we have the shield Pavis, however you want to pronounce it, and the Force Buckler, heavy and light. Both of these are created at the fabrication bench and as a result are quite a late game tech to access. So when we come to actually equip colonists with these shields, because of the vanilla expanded framework reliance, when these shields are equipped, they look like shields. Who'd have thought? So the Power Pavis looks like a big, heavy, sturdy riot shield type item, and the Force Buckler looks light and flimsy, and also looks like it's got a shield around it, which we'll touch on later. Then lastly, looking at the tech cost for these 2 shields, the Force Buckler requires the shield technology to be researched, so it's kind of mid-game, and then the Power Pavis requires marine armor, which on the other hand is extremely late game if you are playing a very non-modded vanilla playthrough. So that's going to be it for the content section of this review. Now, where am I at with this? Well, funnily enough, I don't think there's very much here. I think the Steam Workshop page, despite the lack of content there, it's not affecting the actual performance of this mod. I would maybe like to see some images added, and I would maybe like to see some mod recommendations as well. Then looking at the actual content in game, it does the literal bare minimum for a shields mod. We've got heavy shield and light shield. That is the bare minimum, and I think that is honestly enough for a modern shields mod. I would maybe at push like to see maybe an Archotech shield. Maybe I'd like to see once a little bit more thematic for some of the DLCs or something. But honestly, I don't think it makes that much difference because what we've got is of a high quality, it's something unique that's been added to Rimworld, and it does honestly fit with vanilla Rimworld perfectly, in fact. So I think for content, I'm gonna give it a 7 out of 10. I'd like to see just maybe a little bit more here, but what we've got is still extremely good. So next, let's move on to the quality section of the review. Now, because there are only 2 items that have been added by this mod, I'm expecting pretty good things here. So let's start by zooming in on the Power Pavis and seeing what it actually looks like. So as we zoom in further and further, holy mother of God, I have never been more sexually attracted to an item in game than I ever have before. The texture quality of this is immaculate. It's practically perfection. And then moving on to the Power Buckle as well, this again, despite it only having the initial holding grip for the shield, it's perfection once again. You literally cannot get better than this. It's orgasmic. I'm going to be honest, this is literally orgasmic. Now, it's all well and good getting absolutely bricked up over these items in game and literally covering my screen in my white sticky goo. How do these actually look like when I'm using them with my colonists? Here I have the 2 colonists once again, but dressed up in some nice lovely armor. I have the Cataphract equipping the Power Pavis, and I have the colonist with the flak armor equipping the Power Buckler. Once again, it just looks perfect. Like, I haven't seen an armor mod or anything like this that fits so perfectly with vanilla Rimworld. I really like the way that the Power Buckle, when it's not equipped to the colonist, doesn't show the rest of the force field around it, and then when it is equipped, you can see the force field around it. This is just so perfect. I love it so much. Now, the last small bit of quality that I did notice within this mod was when I spawned in these items and made them of a quality of excellent and above, they immediately classed as artwork. So not only did you get the nice little description about them in the items information tab, you also got a nice bit of extra stuff about the artwork on the items itself. Not something I've noticed with anything else in base game being able to be automatically made into an artwork, but this was a nice little touch. Thank you. So as you can tell here, I'm pretty worked up over the quality of the items here. This is a quality that I've not seen in the previous mod reviews for a very, very long time. The fidelity of the textures that I'm looking at in-game are incredible. It's like something that is from a completely separate game. It's genuinely mind-blowing when I compare it to other things. I can't help but not look at these items closer and closer with Camera Plus because it is just so perfect. And for that very reason alone, I'm very comfortable giving this mod a 10 out of 10 for the quality. There's been so much love put into this and so much hard work as well. This is literal perfection for quality. So now that I've finished my quick little goon sesh looking at the quality of the items, let's look at the balancing and see how it performs. Now, generally speaking, what I'm expecting from a shields mod is not only for it to protect my colonists, but also be able to let in a certain amount of damage so it's not totally overpowered. Let's get into things and let's actually start by looking at the tech cost. So why are we starting looking at the tech cost before we go into anything else? Now, I want to remind you that the Force Buckler, in order to access it, required just the shield technology. Therefore, we needed microelectronics, electricity, and that was pretty much it. Compared to the power per piece, that required marine armor, which obviously requires fabrication, microelectronics, and a lot of other researches to get there first. So what we're expecting here is the power per piece to drastically outperform the Force Buckler. Let's see how it actually performs. So let's start by looking at the power per piece. So the power per piece has got extremely good stats. Looking at the armor sharp defense rating, it's 156%. The blunt and heat resistance is both extremely good at 65 and 78% respectively. And the offsets when equipped are very interesting. Now, melee dodge chance of -5, shooting accuracy of a -2, and a move speed of -0.4. But also getting a -2 of melee hit chance. So on paper, we can already tell that the power per piece is what it says on the tin, is a heavy shield. This is going to be the one that you want to give your big colonists that have got lots of heavy armor and they've maybe got a melee weapon up close and personal. And then let's look at the stats for the Force Buckler. So what we're expecting is that this is a light armored shield, so this should probably to be a lot worse than the power per piece. Immediately we have quarter the sharp armor compared to the power per piece at 52%. We have only slightly less blunt protection at 52% and then a lot less heat protection at 26%. It's very important to note here that there are also no offsets at all for equipping this compared to the power per piece. So far, in terms of balancing, things are looking pretty good. The power per piece being far more technologically demanding and being able to provide a lot more defensive stats makes sense compared to the Force Buckler, which is easier to access and doesn't provide as much damage. So far, things are looking good. Now let's throw something else into the mix. Let's compare these to the shield belt that's in base game vanilla Rimworld, and how does that perform compared to these shields. So in order to see how this performs in-game in a combat situation, what I've done is I've got myself 3 colonists with no armor and given them the respected shields of excellent quality. I've then got myself another colonist with no health conditions and 10 in melee, and what we're going to do is beat the colonists until they go down, see how long it takes and see how much damage they can actually take. So first, let's start with the colonist with the Force Buckler. Now I think it's very important to note here that not only is this a shield, but it has a charge, just like a shield belt. So the colonist initially takes a couple of good hits here and then goes down after about 6 hits. Not too bad, and not enough here that I'm gonna think that it's overpowered or anything. Seems just right so far. Next, the colonist with the power per piece. Once again, this one takes slightly more than the Force Buckler, not a significant amount more, but it doesn't seem to take as many heavy hits, but more so just a lot more hits that have caused a compounding amount of damage. So I guess if you have a colonist with a lot better armor, they will not be taking as much damage and they probably won't go down nearly as easily as they have in this situation. Then lastly, the colonist with the excellent shield belt, and for some reason the shield belt didn't actually shield them whatsoever, so they went down extremely quickly. So as you can see, so far, things seem to make sense. The shield buckler is okay, better than the shield belt. The power per piece is being a heavy shield, taking a lot more damage, but the compounding amount does have an effect on a colonist with no armor, and then the shield belt is just kind of being a shield belt. Let's move on and try this with an actual weapon. So the gun that I've chosen in order to test this on the colonist is an assault rifle. The assault rifle, in my opinion, is kind of mid to late game and something you'll probably use throughout all of the mid to late game, depending on what your colony is and playstyle. So what I've done is I've got our colonists with 10 shooting, and I've put them pretty close so we can sort of speed up this testing. Colonist with the Force Buckle, as I mentioned earlier, has its shield. Now the shield takes a lot of the damage initially. The coverage here, it seems to do so much so that it doesn't really take any hits at all. However, when this pops, the colonist is dead, like straight away dead. So I guess if you're using a colonist with a decent amount of armor and a force buckler, you're gonna have a pretty good time depending on what weapon you're fighting against. Next, the power per piece, and this colonist eats these bullets. This colonist with no armor takes an absolute shed load of bullets. The power per piece really showing the technology cost and worth and how much value you're getting out of that. Obviously, eventually the colonist does die because not all the bullets are going to go straight into the shield. Some will go around it, and they do go down. But next, the shield belt. So the shield belt was very interesting because it didn't actually kill the colonist at all. The excellent quality shield belt outdid the power per piece and the force buckler by an absolute long shot. In fact, I probably won't even show you the entirety of the clip of how long it took for me to actually break the shield and kill the colonist. It was that long. So obviously the shield belt of an excellent quality is going to be better at defending your colonist compared to the power per piece and the force buckler. But what you need to bear in mind is the coverage and the fact that the shields act as a one-handed item, so you can still use a ranged weapon with them. So as we can tell, objectively, all of the items added by this mod are pretty balanced and they all kind of make sense, apart from when we compare them to the actual shield belts that are in Rimworld, and then things get a little bit weird. So what happens when we combine the two? Well, funnily enough, you can do that and it kind of works, kind of doesn't work. Now, obviously the shield belts are counted as a different layer to the shields that are added by this mod because of the vanilla expanded framework stuff, so you can have shields and shield belts at the exact same time. So for example, we could give our cataphract a power per piece and then give them a hand cannon so they can shoot. Or we can give them two shields. We can give them an actual shield, a uranium mace or something, and then give them another shield belt as well. You can combine weapon types, armors, and everything that's modded or unmodded to create an absolute melee unit if you wanted, or create an absolute unit for ranged combat. It's totally up to you, which is really, really nice. And then lastly, let's quickly touch on the resource cost for all of these. So the force buckler and the power per piece both require 4 advanced components, 10 uranium, but the force buckler requires 100 plasteel and the power per piece requires 200 plasteel. Honestly, it kind of makes sense. I would maybe like to see the force buckler reduced in the amount of advanced components and reduced slightly maybe in the amount of plasteel just because of the tech difference, or make the power per piece significantly more expensive. It doesn't quite make sense that the difference of thousands and thousands of research points is only costing 100 plasteel difference. It's not major, but seems a little bit strange, but that's just me, obviously. So that's going to be it for the balancing section of this review. Now, where am I at with this? I think generally speaking, this mod is extremely well balanced. The integration with the vanilla expanded framework stuff allows this mod to fit in perfectly with vanilla Rimworld and allows for an alternative to shield belts in the late to mid game stages of Rimworld, which I think is perfect. The only way that I see this overpowered in any regard is when you as the player chooses to use any of the items added by this mod in conjunction with a shield belt. That is the only occasion that I can ever see this as being overpowered. I don't know how we can remedy this, and I don't know how the mod creator can fix this in any way. Perhaps some extra offsets to be added for when you're combining the two, or maybe just not allow it. Otherwise, the balancing here is very, very good. I think overall here, I'm very happy at giving this a 9 out of 10. Like I said, the only way this is overpowered is when the shield belts are combined with the stuff added by this mod. Next, the compatibility. So next, let's look at the compatibility. Are there any bugs I need to let you know about? How does this fit in with your playthroughs? Now, in terms of bugs, me personally had absolutely no issues with this mod. Looking through the Steam Workshop page and the comment section there, it looks like there are some bugs reported. But I think generally speaking, as long as you're not playing with any mods that are too invasive of the shields and everything, you should be having a good time. And it's also really nice to hear here the mod creator is replying to people that have got bug issues and then fixing them for them as they go along. So generally, as long as you're not running with a too radical and wild playthrough and mod list, you should be alright. And then how's this mod going to fit in with your playstyles? Now, funnily enough, this mod isn't going to fit into any playthrough that's in the medieval or tribal era. This mod will fit in perfectly with a playthrough that's industrial and above. However, I will say I have got a fantastic idea for a playthrough in my mind with this mod, is to use spacer elves that use the force bucklers as their shields and they use bows and arrows in space. Great idea, you're welcome to take it. And with that in mind, I have to say that I think this mod relies heavily on being part of mod packs. I don't think there's any point of adding this mod to your vanilla playthroughs if you're not also running a pretty cohesive mod pack alongside. this mod needs to be added to a mod pack in order for you to get the most out of this. So I think in terms of compatibility, despite there being not really very many bugs, and the bugs that there are being fixed quite regularly, the fact this mod is relying on mod packs and the playthrough potential is a little bit on the smaller side, I'm very comfortable at giving it another 7 out of 10. Nothing to do with the quality or anything to do with this mod, it's just not able to fit into enough things for my liking. So next, let's look at my mod recommendations to go in a playthrough for this mod. Now, generally speaking, I've recommended mods that fit in a sort of combat aesthetic, so I think that's where this mod will really benefit well in a mod pack. So to start with, I've recommended Save Our Ship 2. I think this mod would fit in perfectly in a mod pack that goes alongside this. Literally any mod though goes fantastically with Save Our Ship. Next, I've gone for Vanilla Expanded Pirates because I think the war caskets using the Power Pavis would be amazing. Next, I've gone for Vanilla Armor Expanded, so you can use even more different variations of Cataphract Armor and Phoenix Armor to go with all the shields. Next, Pulse Weaponry, because there are some amazing one-handed weapons here to just make your colonists even more overpowered. Then lastly, Detroit Become Human Police Gear, so you can really go for that sort of Empire and Royalty aesthetic and go for a police-themed playthrough. So I think the mods that I can recommend with this mod are far and vast. There are loads of mods that I could have thrown in here, and I've only picked a select few. However, as I said in the compatibility section, this mod doesn't work in a playthrough that's medieval nor tribal, which is obviously going to limit it quite a lot. And if you're playing in a playthrough that's a little bit more passive, a little bit more animal friendly, or something that's not necessarily combat focused, you're not necessarily going to want to use this as well. I think for mod recommendations though, I'm very content at giving it an 8 out of 10. Lastly, my conclusion. So whilst preparing to do this conclusion, I can genuinely see why it's been given such a high rating on the Steam Workshop page in such a short amount of time. Despite this mod not necessarily providing the most amount of content that I'd like to see, what it does provide is of such a high quality and is so well balanced. The love that's been put into this mod is absolutely amazing. The practical perfection that comes with this mod, alongside the lack of bugs and the amazing amount of playthroughs that we can get out of this, has combined together to give us an amazing mod. So for content, it received a 7 out of 10, quality 10 out of 10, balancing 9 out of 10, compatibility 7 out of 10, and my mod recommendation score was 8 out of 10. Giving it the grand total score of 41 out of 50, which is a A-rated mod, a rating I haven't been able to give out for a very long time. This mod is amazing, and I genuinely think that this is a mod that should be added to pretty much all of your playthroughs going forward if you're running anything that's industrial and above. However, I would like to see some more content. I want to see a few more shields added of maybe different variations, a Viking style shield, and maybe a long shield that covers more of one side of the body. Just a little bit more and I would be even happier. And obviously the Steam Workshop page could do with a little bit more. But obviously don't base your opinion on what I've said. Please test out this mod yourself and add it to your playthroughs going forward. So yeah, if you have enjoyed watching this review, consider liking, subscribing, make sure you tell your mum about me, and I'll see you next time. Thank you.